right, so hopefully this will work out. So my apologies for not getting this up sooner. Um, I had some personal issues I had to take care of, so catching up with what we missed. So we have already gone over the two basic ideas or theories of how to look at political views. Remember, just as a quick recap, the linear theory is that left, which is liberalism, progressivism, in extreme communism, and the right, which would be conservatism, libertarianism, in the extreme would be anarchy. And the linear theory said that left and right, politically, are total polar opposites. And the more extreme they become, the further and further apart that they go on a linear spectrum. So one is at the far end of one side, one is at the far end of the other. And then the moderate center in the middle is probably the more reasonable thing. Then there's the horseshoe theory that, again, we use the same basic terms, left, right, center. But in the horseshoe theory, the more extreme the left and the right become, the closer they actually get to each other because of the similarities and character traits present in both the extreme left and the extreme right. So let's look at a real big generalization of left and right now, okay? And specifically, I want to kind of highlight the ways that the left and the right are actually maybe very similar to each other. So, number one, the first thing to understand, there's a basic thing to understand about both the left and the right. Both the left and the right embrace anarchy to some degree or another. Now, for the left, it's social anarchy. So what I mean by that is that for the left, what they are looking at, everything for the left is about the issue of group identity, group awareness, group belonging. Social anarchy is the idea that groups engage in activities where they cause unrest and disruption. And in fact, the left, despite the fact that it will eventually lead to something like, um, a dictatorship like communism, which is a party dictatorship, the left believes that it's actually engaging in sort of an individualist approach because of their embracing of democracy. Everything is about the group for the left. And what I think, to try to be very fair to the left's position, I think that many people on the political left genuinely believe that the best thing is when groups are sort of left alone and they basically run themselves and they sort of stay away from each other. Like this is what my group wants to do. They should be left alone and they should be allowed to do what they want to, and nobody should be allowed to stop them. So, the liberal progressive view, everything for the left, if we were to pick one word to describe what the left wants, we talked about this, that word would either be equity or fairness. Now, equity is not equality. It's sameness. Equality means that there's an opportunity and everybody has the same chance under that opportunity. Equity is the idea that everybody's the same. There's a big difference between same opportunity, same chances, and sameness. Now, another part of leftist thinking is this concept of fairness. It's not fair that certain people have more stuff than others. It's not fair that certain people suffer when others don't have to. It's not fair that some people lack basic necessities while others have way more than they need. It's not fair that, you know, one person makes so much more money than another one does. What the left really wants is to try to make things fair for everybody. And I'm trying to really be reasonable about this. It's it's kind of a noble thought. It in its own way, it really is trying to be compassionate. It's trying to look out for those people who are in need, and those needs just are not being met. Now, where the left, I think, loses something is its embrace of the concept of critical theory. Critical theory is the idea that all of human history is a struggle between two groups. And this struggle, give me a second. Okay. This struggle is between a victim group and a group of people who are oppressing them. Those are the people in power. The the beautiful handy thing about critical theory is it's so vague you can adapt it to anything. Who's the victim group? Pick what group you want to be the victim. You know, you can base victimization on anything: skin color, gender, clothing that you wear, religious group you belong to. Doesn't matter. In critical theory, there is a victim group or more than one victim group and a group of oppressors who are in power. The victim groups view the only way to help themselves and, quite frankly, to help others is to use violence to fight the oppression. And pretty much anything is justifiable if you're fighting oppression. Now, there are people, in leftist ideology who are meant to be in charge. That's because in order for groups to be organized and to achieve what they need some kind of organization. These people are elite. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. If you guys can remember, like, if you know anything about ancient Rome, the Roman emperors did not refer to themselves. I mean, imperator was actually a military title, but they did not refer to themselves as like king or anything like that because Rome didn't have a king. Rome was a republic. So instead, what they called themselves was first citizen. They were a citizen just like everybody else. They were just the first citizen. They were a more important citizen. And this is kind of what it is with the left. Everybody in the group is a victim. And everybody, deserves to be recognized and empowered. But a few of us deserve that a bit more than others. So, how do I make this point? Well, let's just use a hypothetical example. Hypothetical example. A couple of them. Hypothetical example number one. Let's suppose you have a super rich billionaire who really complains about the idea that normal, everyday people are destroying the environment by driving around in gas fueled automobiles and living in homes that require, power plants fired by coal, which produces environmental problems. And that everyday people need to switch to a clean form of energy that is not going to cause carbon emissions. While at the same time, the guy saying that, this leader, is flying around the world in a private jet that's using up more fuel and emitting more carbon emissions than a small city over the course of a year. Or let's take the hypothetical example of a pretty popular musical performer who gets out there and complains and gets angry because supermarket owners are making a 3% profit on the food that they sell. But she feels no problem charging like $3,000 a ticket for her show because somehow or another it's okay for her to make that money, but not for the supermarket owners. The problem is that the people who run these groups on the left, these elite, make rules that don't apply to themselves. They don't believe that they actually should have to follow the rules. They have reasons why they are entitled to break the rules. So for the billionaire who jets around the world using up carbon emissions and causing all sorts of problems, his reason might be, hypothetically, I have enough money to plant 100,000 trees that'll offset the carbon that my plane emits. Until you people can plant 100,000 trees, you need to stop driving cars and, living in homes that burn gas, natural gas, or whatever. Or in the case of the pop starlet, who's okay with charging $3,000 a ticket because her concert tour brought in so much money, it actually stimulates the entire economy and it pulls everybody up. Whereas that little grocery store chain that's making 3% profit, they're only maybe helping their owners. And that's not right. She's helping everybody. So you see, this is how rules don't apply. Now, in the end, on the left, this violence to fight the oppression will eventually erupt into uncontrolled mobs who maybe take over towns or cities or cause just major disruptions that will need to be put down by force, and that force comes in the form of a dictatorship organized by the elite to protect themselves. This is the left and their social anarchy. The right are individualist anarchists. They believe in the action of the one against a government, not a group against a government. If there's one word that we would use for the right, that one word would either be liberty or justice. The idea of personal freedom and the personal responsibility that everybody has to be accountable for. The right is really based a lot on this idea that the only people that you can trust is you and your immediate circle. Extreme right-wing thinking leads to a condition called xenophobia, that is fear of the other, fear of strangers. And it leads to paranoia, the belief that everybody's out to get you. And eventually what happens is that the right embraces violence as a justifiable way to protect the individual. It's not just that you have a right to protect yourself. You have a right to proactively protect yourself. You perceive that others are a threat before they make it known that they're a threat. And the best way to stop a war is to prevent it from happening. How do you prevent it from happening? You take out the enemy before the enemy is organized. Now, there is an elite mentality on the right as well, but it's an individualistic elite mentality. It's the mentality that says that I, as a person, am just better than you. I'm smarter, I'm better looking, I have more money, I'm stronger, I'm more athletic, I'm better armed. I'm the one who should be in charge because I'm just better. Whereas the left pretends that there's equality, the right makes no pretense whatsoever. If someone is proved to be definably better, they're just better. And in the end, what ends up happening is that one person becomes convinced that they are just better than everybody, and they end up taking over. So these are the ways that left and right are actually very similar to each other. Now, in our next lesson, we're going to talk about where some of these ideas came from as opposed to the ideas that founded America. Okay, so we're going to stop here. I'm going to check to make sure this worked. Peace and love.